Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5 a.m. Club. I'm coming to you from Cockle Bay down here at Darling Harbour, Sydney CBD, on this Wednesday, the day after Anzac Day, a day where I ventured into the city on two occasions. One was when I got down there at 4:15 in the morning and went to the dawn service at Martin Place, and then I drove back home, slept for about an hour and a half, then got up again, jumped on a bus and came down to the city to watch the march, the Anzac Day march, which was a moving experience to say the least. What I want to do today is continue along my way, along the traditions of Jim's 5 a.m. Club, and do yet another book summary. And today's book summary has an interesting title and some interesting content that will help us put things into perspective and see history through different eyes and understand how fate has changed the course of history, regardless of what man's plans have been along the way. What we've been able to learn is that things just happen over time and change the course of history for the better or for the worst. But to be able to, have an appreciation for what happens and how people are influenced by the things that just occur, which are unplanned but have a massive impact on where we are today. The book that I'm going to go through today is entitled Napoleon's Buttons by an author named Penny Couteur. A beautiful name. One of the founders of the school that I went to, one of the old headmasters, was named Couteur, and one of my daughter's friends, who's a family member of the Couteurs, I'll just be interesting to find if there's any relationship there, because we are linked by the 6 degrees of separation. So a little bit more about this book. This book looks at how atoms and molecular bonding, the impact that those things have had on human history, from the formation of a molecule that created a new country to the molecules that helped end a war. So, chemicals and physics make up a great amount of our human history and our interactions with each other. And what the author here kicks off by saying is that the atoms in molecules, in fabrics for example, and spices had a huge impact on the way countries were formed and how wars were initiated and ended, even to the point where Napoleon's buttons had an impact on his war efforts, and other things such as the history of Manhattan, which was associated with the nutmeg trade, is also very interesting. It's something that I wasn't quite aware of. So let's get to the core of this book and just have a look at some of the interesting things that have been raised and things that may inform us a little bit better about history. So, with the reference to Napoleon's buttons in this book, what the author suggests here is that Napoleon's campaign in Russia was extremely disastrous for a number of reasons. Weather, conditions, the timing of the campaign, and many other things can be talked about. But one single element had the greatest impact. And what the author here reminds us of is that Napoleon's army were dressed in uniforms that had tin buttons made out of tin. And the tin buttons deteriorated in the cold, in the extreme cold conditions, to the point where his 500,000 soldiers that commenced the campaign through to Russia ended with 10,000 or 50,000 soldiers in the end, because many died because of disease and of the cold. But a lot of the disease and damage to his army was because of the tin buttons and the soldiers getting tin disease, believe it or not. So who would have thought that something as simple as the buttons on a uniform can have such a disastrous or such a massive impact on a major historical situation that basically changed the world back then, or at least it changed the world for the Russians, and it changed the world for Napoleon's army. The other thing that the author talks about is the battle for nutmeg. There was once a time where nutmeg was highly valued, just like there was a time where tulips were highly valued and other commodities, spices and things like that were highly valued because of the impact it would have on trade, and something that was highly valued by the community. Nutmeg was one of those things, and I was amused to hear and learn that the Dutch, who had a colony in America, who basically had a colony in Manhattan, and Manhattan is probably the most richest space of land on the whole earth, and Manhattan was controlled and run by the Dutch as one of their colonies. But the Dutch were so into their nutmeg, they happily traded Manhattan for an island called Run that was owned and run by the British, because Run was a place that was rich in nutmeg resources and nutmeg production, and it was something that the Dutch really valued and wanted and happily traded, believe it or not, Manhattan for an island known as Run, and the rest is history. I guess when they look back over their history, I think they'll be scratching their head that they were able to give up one of the most valuable, the most powerful land masses in the world just for the ability to trade and to have access to a spice known as nutmeg. It just goes to show that whilst each individual person has their own fate in the world, and no matter what plans one has, the fate of each person is unique to that particular person. So too countries, governments, communities have their own fates as well, based on what happens and how people respond to the things that happen to them over time. And the author then goes on to talk about how some massive, important, significant breakthroughs in science have occurred through accident, through accidental scientific experiments that gave way for humanity and paved the way for humanity to evolve and improve. Many of the things that we enjoy today are because of a failed experiment. Something that happened, something that someone observed, someone questioned, someone was able to capture, to use, to experiment and to redevelop, and it basically changed the way we ate, the way we dressed, the way we interacted, all of those things. And progress is based on incremental changes to the progress and changes that have come before us. So it's important, once again, to understand that and to appreciate it and to know that accidents happen, that those accidents actually create our future. So we need to be observant, and we need to think, have a solutions focus, and to see how we can apply our knowledge. Because learning is the art of attaching the unknown to the known. And the more you learn, the more you're capable of learning. The more you know, the more you're capable of knowing. So what we're saying here is the more you do, then the more you're capable of doing. So the communities that embraced change, that embraced experimentation, that tried different things and new things and incorporated other things into their culture were the ones that were able to grow and develop and to make more of their world. So much is owed to the accidental experiments of our past, and it's something that I guess the author wants us to appreciate. For example, Fleming's discovery of penicillin. It was a failed experiment which led to it. Also, William Perkins' purple synthetic dye was discovered when he was trying to find a cure for malaria. Even Queen Victoria wore clothes that were dyed with his discovery. And there are many examples of how experiments have helped advance humanity. Chemistry plays an important part in our lives, and the right atom at the right time can make an enormous difference, which has far-reaching effects with many first, second and third level consequences, both positive and negative. So what we're saying here is that fate, pure chance, has shaped the world. And when I look around Sydney today in 2023, we live in a modern city with lights sparkling, with foreshores reclaimed, with new buildings going up all the time, and shifts in technology being incorporated into what we do and how we live. And a lot of that is just adding to what we already know, what we already do. So the more we advance, the more we're capable of advancing. So the call to action is to continue to be educated, to continue to have a critical mind, to continue to develop and engage in critical thinking, because sooner or later it's going to take you, it's going to lead you to a place where you haven't been before. And we need to continue to embrace discomfort, to live and to lean just outside our comfort zone, so that we continue to grow, we continue to push, and we continue to make this world a better place wherever possible for our children, grandchildren and future generations. The last point that the author makes here is that science is a powerful concept which took us humans a long time to come to terms with it. Now, we've always had a fascination with chemical reactions. We've always had a fascination with alchemy, how to take things and to change things into other elements and to make things work for us and make things serve us. And just to think that the witches of old used science to make things happen, and both science and religion have been able to work together, to coexist and to support each other. So I think I'll leave it there. It's Wednesday morning. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful morning, a beautiful day. The sky is starting to light up and it's time for me to head to work. So wishing you all the very best for this day. Lest we forget the many war heroes, the veterans. And yesterday when I was at the march, I was heartened and glad to see some of the old veterans still marching. And one in particular caught my attention, caught my heart, was an old man, very old indeed. And he looked breathless, but he was walking with his walking stick, and behind him was a nursing staff lady who was pushing a wheelchair, and yet of course he refused to be wheelchair bound, and he was marching with his walking stick. And as he walked past the group of people that I was with, people broke out into applause for gratitude at seeing him still expressing his human spirit. And as he walked past, he took his walking cane and started swinging it round and around as if he was the bandmaster, to which the crowd went absolutely wild and started cheering and clapping even louder with his little grin on his face. But little things like that made Anzac Day for me just that a little bit more special. And I must admit, as I'm getting older, I'm getting a lot more sensitive. And for most of the day yesterday, for the dawn service and the march, my eyes would well up and I'd choke up at the thought that these people, these young Australians who were 14 or 15 or older teenagers back then, went and fought, went to a foreign place to fight a war that wasn't theirs. But what they did do was they upheld democracy, they upheld freedom, and they fought for our freedoms, the freedoms that we enjoy today. I was a little bit disappointed that whilst it was a great turnout, there was nowhere near the number of people that were present, that were reportedly present at the Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras, the pride event of Australia's year. And I don't really know why they call it a pride event, because if the LGBTQI plus asterisk anything goes events are pride events, then how do we describe a Anzac Day march, which is the ultimate respect for those who paid the ultimate price? And as I was mentioning, I was disappointed to think that there are more people that are present at a Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras march than what were for the diggers and the service people who serve Australia. Just goes to show that we are losing our way. We have lost perspective, and it's sad, but what do? All I can do is just encourage people to attend the Anzac Day service. And as I mentioned yesterday, I was heartened to see the many banners that had Greece and Crete written on them. When I was a kid, I was a little bit confused when I saw the Anzac Day march on the black and white television, thinking that those banners, which wrote Greece and Crete on them, were banners which showed, who the Australian Army were fighting against. But of course, what I've learned since then is that the Anzacs, both the first and second Anzacs, served in that part of the world and fought side by side with the Greeks in the Battle of Greece and the Battle of Crete in the Second World War, and were there to defend and to help support the Greeks against the marauding Germans. And in World War I, Greece offered great support to the war effort through Limnos, which was the port, the harbour where the Armada, which went on and came from the war zone in Gallipoli, would bring soldiers, take soldiers and provide supplies. So Greece has played a massive effort in supporting and being an ally of the West and of the Anzacs as well. And there are over 2,000 Anzacs buried on Greek soil, which is something important to understand and something that we need as Greek Australians to reflect on and to support wherever possible. So next year, grab your family, come down to the dawn service and be part of the celebration, of the commemoration of those who gave their lives so that we and our families can have a better life. Wishing you all the best, take care and have a great rest of the day, and I look forward to coming to you again with another message of empowerment from another place where we can showcase the absolute beauty of this city of Sydney and this wonderful country that we live in. Yassas and bye for now.